Hi guys, welcome to Full Time Devils. I am Adam McKola. Today we are joined by three legends, Paul, Stephen Howson, and of course Gaz. And we are here to preview Watford against Manchester United. Yes, the international break is over. Football is back. Premier League football is back anyway. And a huge game is on the cards this Saturday. Manchester United really need 3 points because we cannot make it 3 defeats out of 5 in the opening Premier League games. We just cannot go there. So guys, how you feeling first of all? You all good?
Excellent, thanks.
Don't all scream at me at once. It's all right. Don't worry, Gaz. You're just going to stare at me? Steve, you the same?
I'm just not feeling good in regards.
That's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling this.
And when I get that feeling, Steve's not going to talk to me and Gaz ain't going to talk to me. But hopefully, they'll speak to me in a bit as we get stuck into the preview. Now, first things first today, we are going to be speaking about the international break. And what I want to get from you guys is your opinions on the international break. Who you think had a good international break? Who you think had a bad international break? And do you think it was a good international break overall for the club? Did it come at the right time? I'll come to you first, Paul, seeing as you were the only one that spoke to me in the intro.
I can't say that it would be particularly reasonable to describe it as a good international break for the club, given everything that happened with Pogba, given Jose Mourinho's falling over left, right and centre. All right, maybe only once, but still. But, you know, our strikers scored goals for their countries where they play with a degree of freedom. It's all fine. So, you know, there were clearly United players who had a good international break. Paul Pogba had a lovely time having that song sung at him by lots of people that we've all seen doing the rounds on Twitter. And so Lukaku scored, Rashford scored, Luke Shaw. This could have been potentially really serious, but he'd played really well up until the point he got that injury, and it seemed, we'll talk about this later, obviously, but it seems like it wasn't too serious overall. Whether it came at the right time for the club, I think that's extremely questionable, given that we'd finally just won a game after 2 defeats on the bounce, and there was all that kind of good feeling and defiance between the supporters and the manager. So perhaps it was not ideally timed, and some of the things that have happened during it have certainly not been ideal.
Now, Paul did mention Paul Pogba there, and there was a Paul Pogba huge debate this week, which Paul was a part of with Mo, Steve, and Dale from Stretty News, I believe. Am I right in that?
Adam, you just said then we've got a big Paul Pogba debate, which Paul was a part of. Please stress that it's not actual Paul Pogba on the debate.
That was the clickbait part, man. Come on, Gaz. You got to leave that in there for the people. Anyway, Gaz, what did you make of the international break, mate?
You know what, mate? I actually quite like the idea of this whole UEFA Nations League. I think it actually makes international friendlies ever so slightly more interesting, even if I don't have a clue how the actual league does work. But from what I did see from the international Reds, I think it seemed like a decent international break in terms of actual performances. Not too many injuries. We probably will miss Luke Shaw for a game, but that's understandable and was a bit of a freak one. Any negatives, really? Maybe that Paul Pogba played all the minutes that he could have done, and maybe we would have wanted him rested a little bit. But I think there's loads of positives. Lukaku was on fire, scored 3 against weak opposition. Sorry to the Scottish. What else is there? De Gea only conceded 1 goal, and Pereira looked fit in his new Brazil kit as well. So there's that.
Pereira and Fred were together for Brazil, which was great to see as well. Richarlison balling too for them, which was interesting. Anyway, guys, before we do go on further to Steve's opinion now on the international break, let me just tell you, the guys are speaking before Jose Mourinho's press conference. So if in the press conference, Jose says Shaw's not playing tomorrow or Shaw is playing against whatever he says, we didn't know that. So just bear that in mind when the guys are giving their opinions. Steve, your thoughts on the international break?
Why am I not surprised Gaz has fell for the obvious rebranded marketing of just what's the same old international friendlies?
I don't think it is, you know. I think Gaz is right. I'm going to defend Gary here. And I think the new structuring of it, where the lesser teams play the lesser teams and the bigger teams play the bigger teams, and it gives them a chance to add some credit to their qualifications. The only problem for me is you can only have 3 subs. That's the only problem for me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's not, though. It's not, because you can only have 3 subs. And at that point, it becomes a competitive fixture that gets treated totally differently. If you looked at...
Yeah, but international friendlies were always...
Let's not argue about the UEFA Nations League.
Technically.
Let's talk
because
about
they was
the
always
international
counted for rankings. Yeah, so international break obviously was not a good one for Luke Shaw, was not a good one, you could say, for Jose Mourinho, as that means that reporters have a bit of a time off and they need to fill that with absolute garbage. I was delighted yesterday to find that Sanchez had gone shopping and dropped Doritos. I mean, that is just exactly what you want to wake up and find out in the morning, isn't it?
Big news. Big news.
Obviously
He's
big
on
news.
Instagram wearing scrubs this week as well, which
Why
is
haven't we had a
interesting.
debate about that?
Ryan Giggs started off the international break well, did a pretty decent job there with Ireland. Not so good a job against Denmark, although I don't think anybody expected Wales to go and beat Denmark, so I'm not sure how much of that you can lay at him.
For us?
I did. I thought they'd be playing a load of bin then.
Who, England? They weren't playing England, Gas.
Denmark.
You heard what happened with Denmark, didn't you? That they couldn't field any of their actual players and had to play a load of futsal players.
Five-a-side
And then
players.
you sorted it out for the Wales game.
Anyway,
Christian Eriksen
I think my thoughts on the international breaks that are in season. I'd rather dedicate a whole month to it rather than kill the momentum of club football, because we're killing it again next month and then we're killing it again in November, and it's a massive 2-week block where there's no games. Like this month, we've got 7 games remaining this month, but we've lost half of the month because of the international break. That would have been a lot easier for everyone to manage as club games if we didn't have the international break in the middle, and it'd enable international managers to build momentum as well if there was an international month, let's say November, so you can have a few months.
Okay, but your points are all pretty much arguments against any international break. Yeah, do you feel like the timing of it was right or wrong or good or bad? What do you think about that?
But the thing is, you get a bit of momentum going, international break. You're going to build a bit more momentum, probably a little bit more momentum because of how many more games there is in the Champions League. Back now, boom, 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 another international break, 13th and 14th of October. And then you get going again, boom, 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 10th and 11th of November, I think there's another international break. It's every 3 weeks or something like that. Let's just sack them all off and go, November is international break month. And when we can concentrate on domestic football till then, and then everyone can get into the swing of things with their international teams and get into the mix like they did for the World Cup and stuff like that. And maybe it'll make international football enjoyable, because that's what's good about the World Cup, is everything stops, concentrate on it. It's not disrupting momentum. You've not got managers pulling players out and Pep all over the place so they can protect them for their league games. Have a dedicated month to international football or sack it off altogether.
Gas, you all right there, mate?
He's always having a go at our rivals. Start talking about why we're good rather than what's wrong with them. Look at the position City are in at the minute. How can you
so why do you have to pull all these players out of internationals then, Gary?
Is there anything that he's doing which is bad for his club? Whatever Pep's doing at the minute, he's f***ing bang on for City. So I don't understand how he can have a go at him every preview like he's
let's not talk about City or Liverpool. Let's talk about Manchester United, and we will be talking about Diogo Dalot. Now, he's one of our summer signings that we haven't got yet to see in the first team. Now, we did get to see a glimpse of him for the 23s. He played at Old Trafford in a victory for there. What have you guys made of Diogo Dalot, the little glimpses we have had of him in a United shirt? You're looking forward to him being possibly in the first team squad. He tweeted that he's excited for Saturday, kind of hinting at the fact. And if Luke Shaw isn't available, would you want to see Diogo at left back? Gary?
I didn't know he could play left back. I'll be completely honest, mate. I don't know an awful lot about the guy. I didn't watch him much last season. I've seen little flashes of him, but not enough really to make any sort of judgment. But I'm really excited when United buy players like this, because this is what we used to do under the Ferguson era. I mean, I know that football has changed immensely, and it seems like everyone knows every player in the world at the moment. But I remember at United when we used to sign players like Vidic and Patrice Evra. They're the two examples that I bring up. I hadn't heard of those players. Sorry, I'm swearing.
Stop swearing, Gaz.
I know, sorry.
You work on the radio and you get all your swears out on full time. What's all this about?
I get it out here.
Hang on, you didn't know who Patrice Evra was?
Well, I don't. Well,
Vidic can forgive you for, because he came from Spartak Moscow or one of the Moscow teams. But Patrice Evra played in the Champions League final before we signed him.
Leave Gary alone. Because Manchester United have always been one of the clubs. I said this before. We don't sign Galacticos. We make Galacticos. Exactly. And I get what you're saying.
That's all I'm trying to say, Adam.
I did know of Evra though when he signed for United. Well, I do get what you mean. Don't worry. Steve? Diogo Dalot. You went to the 23s game that he played in, didn't you?
Yeah, it shocked me in terms of how muscular he was and how physically big he was.
Because squeeze his arm.
The pictures that you've seen of the guy, you don't know idea, do you? You've got nothing to compare him against. You don't know the players he's up alongside, so you're like, I don't know how big this guy is, but when you see him in the flesh, you go, he's pretty jacked. You know, he's stocky. Obviously, he's not very tall, but he's stocky, and it looks like he's got a bit of weight about him. And that struck me, and I was like, actually, in my head, I thought he was going to be, you know, another skinny 19-year-old, a little bit short, a little bit wiry, but absolutely wasn't the case. What we saw against that Stoke side in the under-23s was he loved going forward. He played the sensible passes across the back four when he needed. He liked to run with the ball, time and a place. He linked up really well with Chong on that right-hand side. Jose was obviously watching. He'd come in on his left, he'd go on his right, loves a step over before he does a trick. But what really struck me was that we didn't really get to see anything in terms of what he can do defensively at all, because Stoke offered nothing down his side in any way, shape or form. So there's still question marks over him. Yes, he looks good with the ball at his feet. That's going to be a help. I imagine, I'm sure we're going to talk about it when we start talking about the 11s. If he goes straight in for Luke Shaw, what he can do on the ball is almost quite reminiscent of how direct Luke Shaw is on the ball. So if he's given the license to do what Luke Shaw's done, which is a little bit less defensive work, more joining with the attack and support Sanchez on that left-hand side, I think he could do that job very well. He can play on the left, he can play on the right. He had a really good game at Anfield last season, which was one of the few games that he has played in the first team. Everything else apart from that, we've really seen him in Porto's, you know, underage sides, and he's got a good cross on him. He looks like a decent prospect, but I think people get a little bit carried away. This is a player that's got way less experience than Timothy Fosu-Mensah, so I think this is going to be a slow burner. I wouldn't expect him to be a starter by the end of the season, but he could come and surprise us all. If he puts in the sort of performances that Luke Shaw's been putting in, then he might be an option to play at right back, or at least push Tony Valencia for some of the games against opposition you'd expect us to turn up and beat.
The timing of the signing is pretty good, with Valencia seemingly on that downward slope now. Paul, do you think Diego has enough to eventually become our number one right back?
No, I have absolutely no idea. I don't think any of us could reasonably answer that question. Even the people that brought him to the club can't really answer that question. I mean, they must believe that he has the potential to get to that level, because otherwise they wouldn't have made what is a reasonably significant investment in a player. But I certainly couldn't say enough. Haven't seen anywhere near enough of Dalot to say whether he's got that potential. But, you know, one of the things that I would, the thing that kind of swings it is for Mourinho to invest heavily in a teenager, to kind of, there's obviously a Mourinho signing, isn't it? That he's a young Portuguese star. Whether or not Mourinho said, go out and get me this player, or if he's just sort of said to the club, like, we're hearing good things about this player. There's obviously a Mourinho connection there, isn't there? Or I say obviously, it would seem likely that there was, but yeah. So I would trust the people that brought him to the club, but I've got no idea. And anyway, even if he's got all the potential to make it, a player at his age, we all know there's so much that can happen both on the pitch and off the pitch that determines whether this works out or not. Of course, I hope it does, and you know, the hope is that he can be an upgrade on Valencia quite quickly, because I do think that's been one of the things we've needed most desperately for a really long time.
I remember that being
a big fan of him. He called him the best fullback in his age range. Sorry, guys.
No, it's all right. I was just going to say that was the hope for Matteo Darmian, though, when he arrived, wasn't it? That hopefully he'd be able to step into Valencia's shoes. I know he's a lot older than Dalot.
He hoped to grow some proper beard and sideburns as well, but
and that's what I mean. He's not even been able to grow a beard. Never mind take Valencia's place. So who knows what's going to happen?
Listen, you two with your full facial hair. Some of us can't do it. All right.
Guys ain't got full facial hair. He's been colouring that in. On that note, we're going to an ad break. It'll probably be some sort of beard ad break now that we've mentioned a beard. Right then, that was your ad break. Hope you enjoyed that little break from us talking absolute classic stuff here. We are back now, and you know what time it is after the ad break. It's Predicted 11's time. Now, the table is looking very, very interesting, and I've got to say, myself, Steve, John, and Doc Joshy are all joint bottom.
Who's top then?
Top, Dale O'Donnell on 9, Paul on 9, Cheek Sport Dave on 9, Gaz on 9.
Off. Where's Howson? Where's Howson? Is he joint bottom too?
He's joint bottom with me.
Hey!
And Gaz, guess what? He's had 2 more appearances than you.
Because he's
It's an aggregate one. That's why. What are we on anyway?
I just love Gaz getting violent over the predicted 11 game. Anyway, Gaz, you predicted 11, please. Seeing as you're top of the league, you go first.
Starting 11, Dave in goal, Valencia right back, Dalot left back, Bailey and Smalling, 2 centre-halves, 3 in midfield, Matic, Fred, Pogba, which is nice, I think. And then up top, we're going to go Sanchez on the left. Oh, I don't know. You know what? This is never going to happen, this. But no. I'll tell you what. If we're going to actually do a predicted one. Sanchez on the left, Lukaku up top, and Mata on the right. But I'd love to see Sanchez on the right and Martial on the left.
Mata hasn't been in the matchday squad for the last 2 games, which has been interesting.
I think he could get in now.
Mr. Paul.
I've gone for what I think is the most boring. I don't mean the game will be boring because of this. I just mean my selection is the most boring selection because I think I've gone with one change from the Burnley game, which is just young for sure. So Dave, Valencia, Smalling, Lindelof, based on the fact that they'll be conservative with Shaw's concussion recovery, which I kind of hope they are, to be honest. I don't think concussion recovery should be something that you push or take risks with. Although obviously you'd assume that medical staff know what they're doing in that regard. It isn't exactly evident that football has a particularly good grip on concussion yet. So Dave in goal, Valencia at right back, Smalling and Lindelof, because I'm not sure the Eric Bailly punishment beatings will stop yet. Young at left back. Matic and Pogba and Fellaini because Troy Deeney's in the side and Fred had the big travel during the international break. So I think that there's... And listen, Marouane Fellaini played really well against Burnley and I don't think Jose Mourinho is going to be looking for an excuse to drop him. And then Lingard, Lukaku and Sanchez up front. And, you know, it's not anywhere close to the 11 that would be my dream 11, but it is the one that I'm going for points. Although, wouldn't be at all surprised to get like 6 out of 11 out of that and Mourinho do something completely different for this game. I
think you're going to be bang on, unfortunately. Steve?
I've got to echo what Paul was saying about the concussion in football. I think it's 6-day mandatory suspension, which is almost giving people a green light to just play the following week, which that doesn't account for what you're doing in training either. I think you should have like a proper couple of weeks off. I know in other sports it's mandatory couple of weeks off before you're even allowed to train. So I think football's got a long way to go, and I wouldn't like to see him brought back into it. I mean, because especially in his position, it's not as bad as centre half, but in his position, he's expected to head the ball. So I can't think that it's going to be good for you to be heading the ball after losing consciousness only a week ago. I reckon they probably will bring him back for the Champions League game, but I would like to see him out for a couple of weeks because concussion isn't a joke, and I think it's treated really lightly in football. That being said, starting 11-wise, Big Dave in net, Valencia on the right. I'm going to put Bay in because I'd like to see Bay in, but like Paul, I think he's probably in the doghouse. And I'm really, really tossing and turning on Lindelof and Smalling, and I think I'm probably going to end up going with Smalling because of the threat that Watford give you from crosses and from set pieces. And I'm going with Dalot at left back. I'm not going to talk about the other guy. I'm going to go with Matic in the 6. I'm going to go with Fellaini and Pogba for the same reasons. I thought they was good and controlling against Burnley. Pretty different, a very stacked midfield against Watford. I hope they're not caught out because of how compact that midfield is that Watford have been playing, but the same forward three, Lingard, Lukaku and Sanchez.
Right, and thanks for your team, guys. We are now going on to the opposition, which is Watford. Now, Watford have a 100% record this season, 4 wins out of 4. And interestingly enough, they've beaten Tottenham, they've beaten Brighton. The 2 teams that have beaten Manchester United, interesting, are Watford league title challengers. What's going on at Watford? What do you guys think of Watford and their new manager? He's only lost once since the back end of last season as Watford manager, which is an incredible record. Steve?
I think Watford are playing massively above where they should be at the moment. The starting 11 is very ordinary. They play a super compact They're calling it a 4-4-2, but in reality, it is more like the 4-2-2 that some people actually don't believe exists. And they do it very well. And I think Will Hughes has been excellent for them. I think Troy Deeney has a big part to play in that typical old school centre forward kind of mould. They like to cross the ball. They like to get the ball in from wide areas. They don't really attack down the middle at all. They do look to counter, and they've done excellently. And you mentioned the two teams that they've beaten, which beaten us this year, but they've also played Burnley, and they arguably look better than we did playing Burnley. So these aren't a joke. And if you're looking like for like in the games that we've both played the same teams, not only are they better, but they're justifiably better, and better by a bit of a long stretch as well. So this is no joke of a game for us. I predicted that they'd come 17th this year. I don't think they're coming 17th based on what we've seen so far, but I still expect them to fall out of the top 10. I think this is the same thing that you get a lot of the time, that a team always burns bright, gets safe, and starts to drop off significantly come Christmas. It might start this weekend, but these aren't a joke, and the confidence will be extremely high. They had a lot less players going on internationals than we did, so they'll have had nearly 2 weeks to prepare for what United are going to do. So United have got to turn up there and be prepared to fight and not go like we did to Brighton and expect that we're just going to beat them because we're supposedly better footballers.
Hear that. Gaz, what have you made of Watford so far this season?
Oh, they've looked mega. Obviously, the results have been great. But, I mean, obviously, I've only been watching highlights on Match of the Day, but the performances have looked brilliant as well. They're one of those teams where, like Steve says, you look at them on paper and you just think they're very meh, they're very average. But they've got those players who'll just, turn up against us. So, the likes of Troy Deeney that you mentioned, that Pereira had a great first game as well. They look really good this season, mate, and we look down. And there's a real air of confidence around them at the moment. So I'm genuinely scared of Watford. That's what I was about to say, but I genuinely believe it. I'm scared of Watford.
You echo that. Are you scared of Elton John's yellow and black army, Paul?
They do look a bit like wasps, and wasps are quite scary. So it is fair enough. The thing
Isn't
is,
their
though,
nickname the Hornets? Or did I make
But
that?
why is their logo a moose?
we're getting to the heart of the important issues here. So the thing is, in the first 2 games of the season, they were genuinely excellent. They absolutely battered Brighton and Burnley, really seriously restricted the chances that either of those 2 teams got, and made a good number of chances themselves, a good quality of chances too. The game against Palace was extremely evenly matched. And there was definitely an element of good fortune and clinical finishing that meant that game went the way it did. And the Spurs game, I think it's fair to say that they caught Spurs on a very good day to catch Spurs, because Spurs hardly created at all. Now, maybe that is because of Javi Gracia's 4-2-2-2-2-2-2-2 formation. I can never remember how many twos there are, so just keep saying twos because you're going to get through enough of them.
2 recurring, just say that.
Yeah, 4-2 squared, cubed. Anyways, there's 3 lots, that's cubed. That's not how it works. This is bad maths.
Don't worry, we're just all over the place here today.
It's interesting though, because Javi Gracia, there's nothing about his background as a manager that would have indicated that this would happen. He's never been anywhere for more than 2 seasons. He's never really won anything major anywhere. His win percentages aren't particularly good if you look back through the history of his career. But he's doing an absolutely cracking job at Watford, which is a weird place to be a manager because of the ownership model. So Watford are owned by the Pozzo family, which also own Udinese and a team beginning with G, Granada maybe. Anyway, they not the TV company, the Spanish football team. They swap managers very regularly as part of their business model, essentially. It's part of their footballing model that they're not looking for a manager to come in and be the manager for years and years and years. So it'll be interesting to see how long Gracia's there for, and definitely fascinating to see how long this period of good form comes. I mean, Gaz mentioned Pereira, who did have that excellent first game. He's already scored more than half the goals he scored in the whole of last season so far this season, so he's clearly in a fine patch of form. And Jose Holebas, the ancient Greek left-back, who was definitely one of Greece's players at the best players at the World Cup in 2014. He's got 4 assists already this season. So again, banging form. We're going to have to watch out for that. It'd be fascinating if Diogo Dalot does play, because he'll be up against Holebas. I don't think he's going to play though. So yeah, I think it would be absolutely ridiculous for us to kind of waltz in there going, we're Man United, we should win this game, when, like Adam said, they've beaten 2 of the teams that we've got not just beaten by, but significantly battered by this season. And maybe the Burnley game proved a turning point for United, and we'll see another kind of defiant United Mourinho-esque performance. But the idea of it all kind of going flat and falling apart does not seem wildly unrealistic.
I can't believe no one's mentioned the fact that ex-Man United captain Tom Cleverley plays for them.
He's
and
injured,
Craig
though.
Cathcart.
Yeah, he's injured.
Don't forget about
there
Craig
as well.
Cathcart. Absolutely done at the back. To be honest, he's better than most of our centre-halves, which is interesting, isn't it? The one thing for me is that I fear, but in the past we've dealt with him pretty well, is Troy Deeney. Now, when Troy Deeney smells blood, he will slap your defence about. And that's what we need to be careful that we don't get into. But the good thing for me is, and I can't stand this guy when he starts. I don't think he should be a Man United player. But whenever he's played up against him, he's done well. Chris Smalling. So I wouldn't be surprised if Smalling against Deeney is a key battle. I
almost think Smalling's close to being first name on the team sheet in this game. I just don't think I think there's next to no debate that, well, obviously Alexis Sanchez is the first name on Mourinho's team sheet. But
Sanchez,
anyway,
Matic.
Yeah.
Even before De Gea.
I mean, I think Smalling is a next to automatic pick for this game, because Mourinho's made it very clear that he won't trust Bailly and Lindelof together. And anyway, even if he would, that Deeney-Smalling battle, we're going to see a lot of that to come, I think.
And Deeney in the past has spoken about being scared of Bailly, so that's interesting. Anyway, score prediction time, guys. Can you gaze into your crystal balls for me and give me a score prediction? I'm going to kick us off and hope things get better after this one, because I'm predicting a 1-1 draw.
Oh, no. I didn't want to be the only one to predict a draw, so now I'm going to have to predict a win.
Oh, no. I was going to predict a draw as well.
As the presenter, I probably should have let you guys go first in it. Are we going to have a full house of draws? So what was your score for the draw, Steve?
I was going to say 2-2.
Yeah.
We're going to score 2. Bloody hell.
I was going to say the same thing, so I'll
2-2.
say 1-1.
1-1. So instead of saying, and Paul?
Even though I'm nervous about this game, I also think that United were much better against Burnley. Lukaku's been banging form, so I'm going to go with a 2-1 win where we halt Watford's amazing charge.
What's mad is we'll beat them and we still won't be above them. For God's sake.
What a world.
Anyway, guys, if you don't want to think about that, we have got plenty of content, new content up for you guys right now. By now, you should have the fan phoning up there for you to check out if you haven't seen it already. Also, the FIFA 19 MUFC player ratings are revealed by these two guys, Steve and Gaz. They were arguing about that a little bit. So go and check all that content out. And of course, over the weekend, we'll have live reaction, fan cams, and all that stuff from Vicarage Road. Hopefully, after Manchester United get 3 points now. Guys, Steve, Gaz, Paul, thank you for joining us all today. Steve, make sure you subscribe to Stephen Howson's channel on the YouTube. The link is in the description below. Same with Gaz. Gaz, you on the radio this week? You doing anything?
Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning on Signal 1.
Nice. And Paul, anything to plug?
Yeah, I'd like to plug the Rantcast podcast.
But let us know what you guys think in the comments below about that Watford game. Watford against Manchester United. Are you as pessimistic as myself, Steve and Gaz? Or are you as positive in terms of a result prediction as Paul? Let us know in the comments below your predicted 11, score predictions, subscribe to all their channels and their things. And for now, guys, we have been Full Time Devils. We're out.